Into the zone. The zone is where my process unfolds an order of magnitude faster and more streamlined. The zone is where I find a certain fulfillment in my engagement. But what is the zone? The zone is a perimeter, a circle of containment drawn into your awareness and into your environment. What is inside will not leak out, and what is outside will not enter in. There is no in between the cracks in the zone. There is simply the zone. And so what then separates zone from a tunnel? A zone is typically intentional. Yes, you may spontaneously land in the zone, but you are aware this is a zone. It has a beginning and an end. Much like the well ring behind me, it is a single containing ring. It is not an endless continuum of rings that I am simply drifting through or driven through without awareness of being in a tunnel. Now this zone is in essence, in its dynamics, non-different from practices of meditational concentration. Yes, you have singular objects of attention, but you also have broader fields of attention. Say, for example, principles of Dharma, philosophical concerns that you intently contemplate on, excluding all else, or compassion, of kindness, and so on. You bring your attention to these zones and you cultivate them to a point of culmination. It's a zone. But these zones also exist in our practical lives. Let us use them skillfully. Skillfully where the zone naturally has a certain magnetic hold over you, just as you have a certain magnetic hold over the ongoings in the zone. We need to be able to snap out of the zone, and we need to be able to invoke the zone, turning it on and off at will, rather than becoming slaves to the zone, allowing the rest of our existence to be compromised, overridden by the zone that asserts its own supreme priority. That is ever the risk in there, whether in hands-on zones or in meditational zones. They are spheres and containments of cultivation, not the final terminal of your consciousness. The zones also imprint your cognition, develop your capacities, cultivate certain traits, and as such, what is inside the zone, mind the contents. Zones that are well-rounded, that are essentially harmonic, whether through problem-solving and resolution, or simply by creative abiding in a field of beautiful fullness, these leave positive, wholesome imprints into your consciousness. However, you also have tangent zones. You have zones that are driven by specific biased agendas, and they too sink deep into your consciousness, but they imprint your consciousness with imbalanced vectors. If you do a tangent zone, then do a contratangent zone as well, to couple your capacities, to reconcile your imprints. Zones are useful, zones are powerful, zones are superstates that you will want to manage mindfully, just as a person operating with power tools would mind their fingers and use appropriate protective gear. Likewise, you require your shieldings, containment of your base awareness from the impacts of the zone. Mindfully into the zone, mindfully out of the zone. The zone is your friend, like an island of attention, but we are not forever on that island. And zone by zone, we build our network of nodes in consciousness into a greater, supercharged, synergetic mesh of awareness. It's a process, and often unconscious, but if you are conscious of the zones you engage with, they will benefit you both in practice and in wisdom. So, into the zones, out of the zones, across the entire landscape of our lives.